Now we are going to learn about for loops, which are very commonly used loop control structures. So this is the general syntax for loop. So for is my special keyword which denotes starting point of the for loop. Immediately next to for loop we have starting parenthesis, and after that we have initialization. So the variable that we will be using for maintaining count of each iteration will be initialized over here. So initialization happens only once, that is in the beginning of the for loop. Once the initialization is done, the compiler will check for the condition specified after the semicolon. So this is second statement that we will be adding inside your for loop. So if the condition is true, compiler will go inside the for loop and it will perform all the statements which are inside your for loop. Once the execution gets completed for this block, then the compiler will perform either increment or decrement, whichever is specified in the instructions. So once increment and decrement is done, compiler will go back at the top and recheck the condition. Again, if the condition is true, the same steps will be performed. Once these statements are executed, compiler will then again increment or decrement those values. It will again check back the condition, again perform these statements, and so on. So once the increment and decrement is done, if my condition is true, these steps will be performed. If my condition becomes false, these statements will not be performed and compiler will come out of the for loop. Let us check an example now. Suppose we want to print numbers 1 to 10. I am initializing one variable as int I. Then my for loop is starting over here. This is my initialization statement. I am initializing I to 1. Then my condition is I less than equal to 10, which is a true condition. So compiler will go inside and print value of I. Once this is done, as the block has ended over here, it will increment value of I. So I will become 2. Then compiler will check for this condition. As 2 is less than 10, it will go again inside of for loop because the condition is true. And after that, the cycle will continue for increment and then condition. If the condition is true, for loop will get executed, else it will come out of the loop. So once your I is incremented to let's say 10, the condition will be checked as 10 less than or equal to 10, which is a true condition. So compiler will go again inside of for loop. It will print 10. Now once the value is printed, value of I will be incremented to 11. And then once the compiler checks for the condition, 11 less than or equal to 10, which is a false condition. So the compiler will not go inside for loop and it will terminate the program. Let us take another example where we are going to print numbers 10 to 1. So again, I am declaring my variable I, and inside of for loop, I am initializing I to 10. Then the compiler will check for the condition whether 10 is greater than or equal to 1, which is a true condition. So it will go inside of the loop and print I. Once the block of for loop is executed, it will decrement value of I to 9. So again, it will check for the condition. The 9 is greater than or equal to 1, which is a true condition. Again, it will go inside and print the value, and this decrement and then checking out the condition will continue till the condition is false. So let's say when your I becomes 1, the condition will be checked as 1 greater than or equal to 1, which is true condition. So all the statements which are here inside of your for loop will get executed. It will print value of I, and then value of I will be decremented to 0. So the compiler will check condition as 0 greater than or equal to 1, which is a false condition. So it will skip this body of your for loop and the for loop will get terminated. So in the next lecture, we are going to look at few examples on for loop. So this is our first program that we're writing using for loop. So in this program, user will enter one number and we are required to print table of that number like this. So suppose user has entered 12. So our program should print 12 multiplied by 1 equal to 12, 12 multiplied by 2 equal to 24, and so on till 12 multiplied by 10 equal to 120. So in the program, I'm using two variables I and n. I will be used to maintain count of my iterations, and n is the number that will be accepting from user. So these are my first two statements to display string as enter number and take value from user, which will be stored in address of n. So inside of my for loop, I'm initializing I to 1. So my condition will be checked as 1 less than or equal to 10, which is a true condition. This for loop has a single statement. That is why we are not writing parentheses for this block. So those are are optional. So as our condition is true, which is 1 less than or equal to 10, so compiler will print this part. So what is happening over here? I'm writing %d, this is x, to denote multiplication. Again a %d equal to %d. So first %d will be replaced by the user's number, which is 12 in this case, and then I'm writing value of I, which is iteration count. Okay, and after that I'm just simply writing n multiplied by I. So every time what is happening, I'm multiplying user's number by my iteration, which will be starting from 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. Also notice that n multiplied by is an inline operation that we are performing over here. So once this statement is printed, the compiler will increment value of I to 2. So once that value is incremented, it will check the condition 2 less than or equal to 10, which is true. So it will again print this value. So this statement will be executed till time I is less than or equal to 10. So let us assume I has become 10 now. So 10 less than or equal to 10, which is a true condition, it will print 12 multiplied by 10 equal to 120. Once this is printed, your I will be incremented to 11 and the condition will be false because 11 is not less than or equal to 10. So your for loop will be terminated and your output on the screen will be like this. In the previous program, we had finite number of iterations, which was starting from 1 till 10. Now we are going to write a program wherein the number of iterations will be based on user's input. Okay, so our problem statement is to ask user to enter any number. So user will enter 4 different numbers and the program should calculate sum of any number that user has entered. Okay, so let's say suppose user has entered 4 and his choice of numbers was 10, 20, 30, 40. So our output will be 100. Okay, so let us see how we can solve this programmatically. I'm using 4 variables over here. N is the number that user will be entering, that is the total number of numbers he will be entering for addition. New n is the number that we will be using every time user enters the number. We are using I as to maintain our count of iterations, and sum is the number which is initialized to 0 to store addition of all these number that user has entered. So here I'm asking user to enter his number. Suppose user has entered, let's say 4, then I'm displaying numbers entered. So my for loop is starting from 1 and it will go till 4. So I less than or equal to 4. So this will be my condition that I'll be checking after completion of every iteration. So here it can be any number. User can enter 4, 40 or 10, any number of his choice. So in case of 4, my condition is true, that is I is less than or equal to 4. So I'm writing a scanf statement over here and that value will be stored inside of variable new n. So let's say user has entered 10. Because sum is initialized to 0, so we are adding 0 with 10, which is user's number, and that addition we are storing into sum. Once this second statement is executed, I will be incremented, so I will become 2. So 2 is less than or equal to 4, which is a true condition. So user will again enter a new number. Let's say user enters 20. So in the second iteration my sum is 10. So I'm adding 10 with 20, which is a new number, and hence my sum will become 30. So it will go on like this until user's final number is accepted by the system and addition is performed. So once my I finally becomes, let's say 4, my final condition to be checked will be 4 less than or equal to 4, which is a true condition. The compiler will then finally take the new value from user, it will add it, and then again I will be incremented to 5 and my condition will be checked as 5 less than or equal to 4, which is a false condition now. Hence compiler will skip these statements and come over here. So here we are simply printing sum of given n digit is %d. So whatever the value that sum is holding, it will be printed over here.